you want to exert that kind of ownership over your writing, then I think, you know, you probably write poetry, right? Which is, the I is so sovereign. Basically poetry is that, right? Establishing the kingdom of the I, especially if you're writing a lyric poetry. Short stories allows you to sort of efface yourself a little bit, but you know, you are still the author. You have sort of the complete control, unless you have a very meddlesome editor, which I don't. So yeah, I could really run rampant with my ego, and yeah, no one disturbs this. But I think that there are different things. You know, it depends on how social or antisocial I feel at any one point of time. So this was written in a antisocial period. Yeah. I want to be alone kind of period. Yeah. I don't consider myself a confessional, memoirist kind of writer. So fiction allows me to indulge in a little bit of self-exposure, yet at the same time sort of like hiding my tracks, erasing them here and there, and putting on sometimes certain disguises, you know. So you just change a few details, and then I feel a little bit protected that way, because I don't like, I'm not an exhibitionist in a literary manner. So yeah, I think some of them are sort of taken from episodes in real life, some from stories that people have told me, some even from headlines, and then I try to sort of reimagine them as stories. I think one reason I wrote this book was also because I felt it's a reaction to journalism, or at least the way journalism is practiced in Singapore. There's this myth that journalism is obviously more objective than literature, for example. And I find that in Singapore it's not true at all. And in fact, I find journalism very reductive. So there are all these stories about, say, drugs and divorce and unwanted pregnancies and all that. So these are the stories you find a lot in the Malay newspapers, and these are sort of diagnosed as social pathologies that the community has got to solve. You know, these are the problems of the problem minority. But I don't think they ever give, you know, the full picture. I think the problem is that they talk about all these things where the people are the problems, but I think through literature I'm trying to find a way to show readers that these people have problems. You know, they are not problems themselves. They're not all these ugly statistics that you keep on publishing to warn the community to, you know, pull up its socks and find some collective action. Yeah. So there's a story about drugs, but it's also, yeah, you buy the book and read. Don't tell you. Yeah.
Why do you write this in English, and any plans to translate it to Malay?
Okay. Why did I write it in English? I think a few reasons. Number one, my first language is English. I'm supposed to be bilingual, but I'm a lot more comfortable writing in English. The second is, I think, in Singapore itself, the readership that I want to reach out to is not just you know, the Malay community. I think yeah, it's pitched at two levels, you know, so for Malay people to read it and sort of like identify themselves in some of the stories, but also I think as part of a huge multicultural project going on in plural societies, you also want to tell these stories, you know, to people who are not Malay.
Your first book of short stories came out before Facebook was invented.
Yes.
But in this one you posted stories as you were writing. So do you think that changed what kind of stories you told, or was it purely a marketing gimmick, like, oh, here's a trailer? You know, did the comments make any
difference? Well, very good question, actually. Because, you know, I wanted to write microfiction for a long time. Not because they take less effort than a short story or whatever, but because I felt I had a lot of stories to tell about the Malay community in Singapore, and I felt that, say, a collection of short stories, of which there would be 12, for example, did not give me enough breadth. You know, I wanted something kind of panoramic, but then you have these little stories, and I wanted a whole spread of them, so at least 40 stories. The Facebook thing is important, is interesting because you're right, because people have shorter attention spans online. You know, you don't want to have a Facebook note that's a 3,000 word short story, you know, no one will read it. So I think it might have had some effect in giving me a kind of momentum. And I think as writers, it's always good to sort of air your works to the public in some way or the other. And then the kind of feedback, because okay, like I say actors are insecure, but writers are also very insecure people as well. So it's nice to put something out in public, get a little bit of feedback that you know gives you that little bit of encouragement to pursue the whole work as a project. Yeah, so that's true. I mean, but I don't think like based on comments I started editing or whatever, or you know, yeah. Of course I will take some of that into consideration, but yeah, yes.
So does that mean that you'll be doing a book about your mother?
Sorry.
So does that mean you'll be doing a book about your mother?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, your mother, man.
Hi. Here mommy comes to upstage me again. It's always her show. I'm gonna, yeah, I'm sure you are, yeah.
Does she know that she's a Facebook star?
Vaguely. But, oh gosh, I'm gonna develop such a complex, you know. Yeah. I sometimes publish on Facebook like conversations with my mom, and then apparently she's a lot more popular than I am right now. I meet people in public and they'll say, "Hey, kirim salam your mother," and I don't know who these people are. And, yeah, I don't know. I've actually asked her, but she's very shy actually in real life. She's very shy woman. The answer for now is no.
Any plans to republish Corridors?
Yes, actually. I think I've discussed this with my publisher, Hofang, and I think we are thinking of reissuing some books by Singaporean authors that have been out of print for a while now. So,
yeah.
When is that?
December.
December,
yeah.
Okay. So the end of the year.
What about ebooks?
Oh my gosh, ebooks.
It's on ebook now.
I'm kind of like a bit more on the pulp side rather than ebooks. I don't know. I mean, I might be romanticizing it a bit, but for me, the encounter of the book, the experience of the, reading a book, the thickness of a book, I need to have that kind of a tactile experience, and I need to be able to smell the pages and caress the cover, and also as an author, it's mystified me a bit as to how do you autograph ebooks? What will happen to the book signing session once everyone uses ebooks? So I think it's great to have other people in other countries. Maybe in terms of the reach of the ebook, it might be much greater than the book, the pop book. But I don't know. I'm still a bit resistant to ebooks. Something a bit too immaterial about it for me at the moment. Any questions for Shahril? Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm just thinking what a wonderful illustration this makes. You like that, Shahril.
Yeah. There's a joke lah. It's cool.
How was the cover illustration chosen?
Oh, how is it? The decapitated head, right? We had a designer. We had a cover designer who was separate from Shahril. So he supplied the illustration, and then my friend Ashlyn, who's also been designing the covers for my other books. Yeah. So he worked on this one. Yeah.
You're choosing the cover as your first piece in your book. How did you choose this as a first piece?
So why did I choose it as a first piece? Okay. In this book, it starts off with a story called The Convert, and it's a story about a Chinese man who marries a Malay woman. And this Chinese man, he's a regular in the Singapore Army. And then what happened after he marries this Malay woman is that he is transferred from his unit, which is I think is a combat engineer or something, and he's transferred to the infantry unit. And in Singapore, if you are Malay or Muslim, the government doesn't think that you should be in certain units in the military, which are considered sensitive. They think if you're Muslim, then if there's war with our neighboring countries, which are Muslim majority countries, then your loyalties are going to be tested. So what happens is that, so this man, Chinese man, and then he marries a Malay woman, becomes Muslim, and then he's transferred to another unit. And I think I chose that because I wanted to sort of maybe pull the rug under the reader's feet at the beginning of the book, in the sense that, okay, you see this and it's about, okay, Malayness, and then you maybe expect, okay, one story about Hari Raya or another story about circumcision or something like that, but then I wanted to sort of, look at Malayness also as a kind of, as I mentioned, a political, ideological rather than a totally cultural kind of construct. So this was a man who in a way sort of like masuk Melayu, right? Or converted to Islam, and then became sort of Malay in a way, but then the state sees the identity in a certain way, and he is in a sense penalized for that switching of identity.